The initial thought of being pregnant, of course, is exciting. You see that test, you don't know if it's real. Of course, it's exciting, but I think nerves hit more than anything. I think that overcome a lot of the excitement on what the next weeks are gonna look like.
After we had our first daughter, she had her own complications. She had kidney issues. She was born, spent over 120 days in the NICU. So there's a lot of stress that goes with that. We decided after 4 years to talk to doctors and see what the chances were of this happening again. And we were told it was less than a 1% chance. So we rolled the dice.
Regardless of having type 1 diabetes, everything was going as planned. Routine checkups, Laramie was growing as she was supposed to and expected to up until our 20-week appointment when we went in for the ultrasound and things kind of took a turn.
And they discovered on the ultrasound that Laramie had a heart defect. They diagnosed her with heterotaxy and atrial situs inversus, which is a mirror image of the heart. The top half and the bottom half of the heart were rotated. Instead of being placed on the normal left side of her chest, it was placed on the right side. With their heart developed the way that it was, the body would circulate blood and the lungs would circulate, but the two were not mixing in the proper chambers. So there was no oxygen going to Laramie. Of course, your mind's racing, the questions, quality of life. Is there a quality of life? Is there anything they can do with it? Because it's so rare. Has anybody ever seen this before?
But we were confirmed that she's okay as long as she's still in utero. It was the part of getting her out and what life was going to look like after that. We had found out that with this diagnosis that it was an 85% mortality rate. Shortly after that, I had met with my OB who had told me at 22 weeks that I could abort the baby. Laramie was going to give us a fighting chance, so we weren't going to give up on her. So over the next 13 weeks, lots of frequent appointments, frequent ultrasounds, check-in, blood work. Things were still as planned. I was only hospitalized twice due to some elevated blood sugars and placed on insulin drips. The second hospitalization, they had decided that it was better if we were closer to Omaha for that delivery. My mom and I packed up the car and left Ty with Lennon to drive a 10-hour road trip. After we got there and after a whole day, I had met with my maternal fetal med doctor over at Women's Methodist in Omaha, and he decided that it was probably time to just deliver her earlier than expected.
So I got the phone call from Kristi, and she said that things weren't going as planned. Loaded up the car and I drove to Omaha. It was a long drive. 10 hours takes a lot longer when your mind's going 150 miles an hour. Is everything okay at home? Is my wife okay? What's our future look like for our new daughter?
The doctors did prepare us for when Laramie was born that she was going to have a blue discoloration because of respiratory distress. So we knew that almost immediately after she was born that there was going to have to be a life-saving heart surgery.
We were scheduled to have a C-section at 7 a.m. Laramie came out screaming, 7 pounds, 7 ounces. They were actually surprised that her oxygen was holding in the low 70s. It wasn't an immediate rush into the surgery we had expected, which was great because that gave Kristi time to touch her finger, say bye before we loaded up and went to Omaha Children's. As we were driving from Women's Children's to Children's Omaha, Laramie started going downhill. Of course, the ambulance started going faster, which makes your adrenaline go even more. Once we got there, they went into a general cath lab and ballooned her heart. There was a hole in her heart, which was what was allowing the oxygen to mix with the body. So they just went in and made that hole a little bit bigger so she could get more oxygen to her body to allow them more time to come up with the next steps. Over the following days, there was hundreds of people in and out of that room. Doctors, nurses, specialists. I felt good for the most part that we had a good outcome. Thinking back to our first daughter who wasn't supposed to be here, is now 4.5 years old and a rock star, gave me the little glimmer of hope that Laramie would pull through it as well. With that, they came in and our doctor came in and he said, we have a plan. Not only do we have a plan, we have A, B, and C plans. This could really be the end, or this could be the beginning.
So due to the complexity of Laramie and everything that entails, one of the cardiologists, doctors even brought in a Bible and said, I'm not sure if you are religious, but I want you to have this. And she said, I think it's safe that you guys pray that she makes it through the night.
The next morning, we'd come up with the plan that we're going to do an open heart surgery on an infant heart that's about the size of a walnut. There's a lot of things that can go wrong with this. The entire cardiac care team drew on a piece of paper what her heart looked like, what they were going to do. And if that didn't work, they had another drawing of the next step that they were going to do. It was very stressful. It was a long night. We had confidence that they knew what they were going to do. And the procedure that they were going to do had only been done one other time in history.
They were taking her back, and it was 5 long, grueling hours of not knowing how she was doing. They did stick us in a private waiting room, but again, their silence can speak through those walls of just waiting until you hear from the doctor. After they took her up, they did prep us that she was going to have an open sternum and that was still going to be open when we got to see her. So we actually saw her beating heart. They prepare you for that, but to see your actual child laying there lifeless because she's in an induced coma for pain, just going through a very hefty surgery. They had told us that the surgery didn't go as planned. Her blood was still not mixing the way that we had hoped. That surgery was going to carry us through and be the final end, and they'd close her up and we'd get to go home, and that was not the case at all. Her oxygen had actually dropped below 30%, and that's when they decided less than 24 hours later that they were going to take her back and reoperate to her second open heart surgery. This second open heart surgery, she received a band, a shunt, a temporary pacemaker, and was immediately started on dialysis.
Yeah, she was coming out of the surgery and it wasn't going as well as they had hoped. They were in our room for hours discussing plans, options. This surgery that they wanted to do had only been done one other time in documented history. Luckily, the individual that created this procedure was also standing in our room. That definitely gave us some comfort.
We had finally gotten good news. They had told us we could wean her off of the ventilator, remove pacemaker wires, and even stop dialysis. So over the next 2 weeks, it was slow but progressive recovery, and we were finally able to bring Laramie home at 5 weeks. We studied and stared at that monitor the entire drive back, and I was sitting in the back seat watching those numbers. I don't think I looked up at the road once, just watching her heart rate and those numbers go up and down.
Next couple months, feedings were an issue, constantly throwing up, couldn't keep anything down. Lucky enough to contract the rhinovirus, which landed her at our local hospital via an ambulance ride, which then with the complication of her heart, they decided that she needed to go back to Omaha. So she got to take her first airplane ride to Omaha. During that time, we're constantly in and out of doctor's offices, both here and Omaha. Seemed like about every 2 weeks we were driving down there for appointments. And in between times, we were here for appointments. We got through that part. And then Laramie starts growing. She's able to start keeping her feet down. Things are looking great. We get to around 9 months old, and she's grown to the point where the temporary heart fix that they did, she was starting to outgrow.
On July 24th of just this last year, we headed back to Omaha for Laramie's third open heart surgery. This one was different. Dr. Wrong came in after that surgery and told us that it could not have gone any better. When you hear that kind of news from the surgeon you have been with from the beginning, you get that sigh of relief. I gave him the biggest hug and said, well, what's our timeline look like here? He said I would still plan to be here for 1 to 2 months, knowing how complex this was. But just 6 days later, we were released home.
So going from the stressful news of the pregnancy to the stresses of the surgery, her laying there lifeless, she's a fighter. She's a rock star now, and it is just absolutely life-changing to see the progression of your kids go from the absolute worst to their best. We still make trips to Omaha every 6 months or so just for follow-ups. There's a chance that she may have to go in and have another procedure. A time will tell. Or she could completely live a normal life, and according to her entire cardiac care team, she may even be able to play sports.
We will forever be in debt to everybody along with us during this journey, all the medical research and our whole entire team who's had our back to give us a heartfelt second chance at life with Laramie.
We have to say thanks to everybody. The American Heart Association has played a huge part in this. It's an organization that we will forever be in debt to. If you look around this room, you're going to see people that you know that has been affected by a heart disease. So we have to say thank you to the American Heart Association for the critical work that they do in improving the lives of kids just like our daughter.